Hello, I'm Dr. Danita, your host for Baggage Claim Unpack Your Bags with Dr. Danita. We're back for season 2. It's season 2 already. And you know that I often say that on this carousel of life, picking up baggage is sometimes really unavoidable. But unpacking those bags becomes a choice. So I'm coming on live every single week, and I'm going to offer those educational tips and emotional health tips, but just remember that they are in no way a replacement for professional counseling. If you're finding that those bags that you're carrying are way too heavy for you to carry, definitely reach out for help. You can find me on my Facebook page at Dr. Danita Thompson. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to catch those replays. All right, so I'm ready to join you live. Remember to hit like and share. You want everyone to know that I'm going on. Like and share, and let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome again to Baggage Claim Unpack Your Bags with Dr. Danita. Thank you so much for joining in. Go ahead and start liking and sharing, like and share, like and share. If you are a season 1 fan, come on and make some noise. Make some noise, clap your hands in the live. Um, if you are joining us for the first time, season 2, raise your hand or just say first time, whatever. Let us know that this is your first time. Let us know where you're watching from in the live. And so we're going to get started. I'm just so happy for season 2 and excited about this next 8 weeks and hope that you will not miss one episode. Even if the topic is not necessarily one that you may deal with, it is inevitable that you are not in community or in relationship with someone that may be dealing with that particular topic. So don't miss any of the episodes. So this is season premiere for season 2, and tonight's topic is blended. We're going to be talking about co-parenting, blending families, being a bonus parent, being a step parent, and I have two guests. I have a couple, an amazing couple that I'm going to bring on, and they're going to share their lived experience with co parenting and being a blended family. They have it all, being a blended family and being step parents. Let's welcome Jeremy and Tylisha McCall. Come
Hi.
on, clap your hands on the live for Jeremy and Tylisha. Thank you so much for joining me on tonight. We're so looking forward to hearing about your experience. We know that when we think about co-parenting and we think about being step parents and the bonus parent and blending families, it can run the gamut. It can go from absolutely horrific and completely stressed out to being very calm and very healthy. And so somewhere in between there, that's when I get to see people in my office when they haven't exactly gotten to the place of healthy co-parenting or healthy blended families. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight. We know that the old adage says that it takes a village to raise a child. But what happens when the village disintegrates or the village divides or things start happening in the village where the grandparents who are part of the village and the aunties and the uncles and the cousins who are all part of the village are trying to figure out themselves how to navigate this newness, this new transition that has happened in the village. And so, again, thank you so much, Tylisha and Jeremy, for coming on tonight. And let's just get started with learning a little bit about you and about your blended family life. We know that living in a blended family is not for the faint. at
Right.
heart, and it's not easy to navigate the whole co-parenting and co-parenting in your own home, and then also navigating what happens between several homes. And so let's just start with you briefly sharing what your co-parenting arrangement or situation, how long you've been co-parenting, what happened and how you became um, co-parents.
Yeah. Myself, I was actually previously married. So in the with us divorcing, obviously, is how I ended up in a co-parenting situation. So I've been co-parenting for 7 years now. Yeah, so I've been co-parenting for 7 years, and we actually have a joint agreement. So my daughter equally spends time here as she does there. So that's actually for me.
For me, I would say I have a son by a previous relationship, and I've been co-parenting now for about 9 years, and we have a joint legal agreement, but joint agreement when it comes to our son, which he's here every
Every
other
week.
week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And so I can imagine that when the agreement, or when you started your co-parenting journey, that it probably took some rocky you probably had some rocky experiences, and you may have been, I don't know, close to being shipwrecked, but you were able to navigate back to shore, hopefully. So let's get to start talking about that. What kind of impact early on did it
Mhm.
have on your family, on your children, their emotions? What kind of financial impact did it have when you began your co-parenting journey?
Yeah, so with navigating, it definitely takes some navigating. And sometimes starting that process, I mean, unless you're perfect, it definitely takes a lot of working out, and it's not easy. So in the beginning, there's so many different challenges, right? Because if you for us, we started off together. So if you initially start off together, right? So you are used to making decisions together. You are used to um, doing all of those things together. And now what begins to happen is that you separate, right? And when you begin to separate, you kind of have like your own idea now of how your life is going, and then you have the other side where they have their idea of how their life is going to go, but then you have that child that's in the middle, trying to navigate in between both of them. So I think the biggest challenge, initially, is scheduling.
Scheduling,
Yes.
communication,
Yeah.
and basically
Yes.
trying to figure out what's best for the child.
Yeah, correct. So those are really hard things to navigate through because obviously, as a mom, I may think it should go one way, and then as dad, they may think it should go another way. We have the privilege of having both other parents being equally and as active in our kids' relationships as we are. I know some people's situations aren't like that, but we pretty much have four parents that are involved in our core parenting situation. And then that's just us and them. And then you have the extension of them with the relationship that they're in as well. So I would say the biggest thing is the scheduling. What does that look like? I have a job, you have a job. Things sometimes change, and navigating through that is not easy. And I know for us, for myself, it was originally not too bad, pretty rocky. Of okay, what time is pickup? What time is drop off? Those are the things you don't have to think about when you're together in a relationship.
Yeah, yeah. What about the emotions? That's where I focus on. What does this do emotionally to the parents and to the children, and we do know that the primary focus is the children, but if the parents are not healthy in the process, then they
Yeah.
can't focus on the children. And so, what kind of emotional things did you deal with when you started this journey?
Ooh, like our personal emotions.
Yeah.
Oh well, for I know for me, personally as a mom, I was used to having my daughter every single day,
Mm-hmm.
and when we initially split, she was only 1 years old. So to all of you who are mothers, right, that first year especially, it's a lot of bonding happening,
Mm-hmm.
and I was so used to just having her at all times. Even your sleep, you could barely sleep sometimes because you're one eye open, listening for sounds. Are you breathing? Are you doing this? So for me, emotionally, to now have to not see her, um, was initially really devastating, to be honest.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, oh, you get a break then, but that's just not the beginning process that you experience. So over time, I've learned to appreciate it. But initially, for me, emotionally, I remember, not having her, for example, for a weekend and sitting in the house, not wanting to go anywhere because I felt guilty to go out
Mm.
and do something and have a good time or meet up with a friend, because I felt like that should be the time I should be spending with her. And even though I knew she wasn't there, it was very hard for me. And actually, he talked me into getting out the house because I would literally not go anywhere, and I would actually sometimes find myself crying, because I felt like, what did I do to my child's life? I never wanted this for her. And
Yeah.
I could have given her anything. It would to be, us with her with her parents and living in the same home. But unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way. So there was a lot of guilt that surrounded it for me. I know emotionally. Um, I don't know how it was. You can speak on yours.
Well, for me, it wasn't.
Your
I didn't fit.
dad.
Dad's perspective is different, and then I have a son, so it's kind of different for us because I felt like for me, he was 3 years old, so with my work schedule, I always felt like my days off, he was with me anyway. So when I was at work, I was just at work. He was with his mom, so I never really had that emotional attachment because I knew he was good. But for me,
You didn't
even
cry in the house?
no, I didn't
No.
cry in the house. So like when I was out and off, I was off. When dad's off duty, dad's off duty. So we didn't have
Yeah.
that saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe he's gone." Nah, bye, see you later. Come on, time for me to go. But it does have its challenges. And emotionally, I guess for the kid, as long as you kind of not necessarily, I would say keep things from him, but whatever you guys like, so far as the co-parent, you guys at the beginning, we did disagree with certain things, but as long as you didn't do it in front of him
Yeah.
and don't let him see it, I don't think it really affected him emotionally. But I think it was just more so, I just stayed the same way across the board when we became co-parents.
Yeah. Well, your son, he was born into the co-parent um,
No,
arrangement,
no,
right? No.
no. He was well,
He's three.
he was 3 when me and his mom
Oh,
separated.
okay.
So
Oh, okay.
he was born
Okay.
with us, but then 3 years old, we kind of went our separate ways.
Okay.
But he was
Is
still
is
young, so he was kind of used to it.
yeah.
And we
It
both were, and it was kind of the way my schedule always worked out. Even when he was younger, it was always my days off. We had our bonding time, and on my days I worked, he was kind of more so with mom. So we kept that same arrangement throughout the whole separation. So it was like I don't think anything changed for him. More so the changing was the living arrangements, that dynamic. But for the most
right.
part, they'll stay the same.
It's interesting, and as we listen to both of you, we get to see the perspective and of the man versus the woman, and how the emotions play out in this co-parenting journey.
Yeah.
And so it sounded to me, Tylisha, like you were dealing really with grief and, like kind of cycling through that grief. Like, I can't believe that this is where I am sitting on a couch without my daughter that I'm supposed to have in my arms right now. And then you had to cycle through, I'm sure, the sadness and then coming to, and you also said you felt guilt, which is also part of the grief process, but
Hmm.
you came to that place of acceptance. And it sounds like now you are some years later able to say, yeah, I can get that break and I can take some time for, well, I know you have a little one now,
Yeah.
so I don't know if you get all of this self-care time when when she's with her dad,
Yeah.
but being able to have her to have that experience without you experiencing the guilt now that you have, grown to that and come to that place of acceptance. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine that the challenges didn't end with the emotions. I know that for parents that are dealing with co-parenting and trying to blend their families, there can be a myriad of things. And not to say that you all dealt with all of these things, but there could be lack of consistency. I know you talked about the decision making that becomes challenging, and sometimes parents will make decisions without telling the other parent, and there could just be so many issues. There's the power struggles, there's faith issues when one parent has a believes in a faith or practices a faith that the other parent doesn't, and you want your children to be in church every week, or you want them to practice your faith wherever they are, and there might be a difficulty in getting the other parent to respect boundaries, and then sometimes there's just outright fighting. I have seen it where I was on the soccer field with my kids, and I see the four parents, and they're just getting along and they're rooting the kids on. And that's the most ideal situation.
Yeah.
But then you see the four parents almost about to, get locked up because they're fighting, and they're fighting in front of their children. And those are the situations that really break your heart when you have the children looking at their parents who usually tell them to use their words to express themselves, and the parents are about to go for blows, and it's very confusing to children. And so that's the sad part, when children become you know when they are subject to that kind of behavior from those that they're looking to protect them. And so there can be resentment, just so many things. Parents trying to communicate through their children, or parents using their children as pawns. Did any of that ring true for you at any point of your co-parenting experience?
You go first.
If you want to go first, you go
No,
first.
you.
Oh,
You
I
want to
gotta
go
go.
first?
Sure. Well, I think for me, I think so far as I think really it's the decision making. Once you like that, I think that was one of the biggest things that I went through so far as this decision making, because you kind of get in emotions of, you know, regardless of how y'all split or if y'all had a bad breakup or anything like that, that sometimes plays a factor in the decision making. But once you migrate through that and you look at the best interest of the child, sometimes you find that common ground. And then sometimes it leads into a power struggle where you'll do something the other parent didn't agree with, or vice versa, and then that turns into a big thing. But
Yeah, and I think it's the for us, for myself and her dad. I think it's a decision sometimes because they can say that I have a strong mind. Um, and sometimes I think that my way of thinking is the best way. So I would even kind of call myself out a little bit to say that I had to learn that she has two parents for a reason. And even sometimes hearing his side as a father has helped me to gain a little bit more perspective of a father's thinking. But what I had to realize too is that she has two parents for a reason. And I think the stigma is that mothers always know what's best.
Mm,
And I think that we know what's best, for our kids. But when you have another active person involved, they know what's best too. And sometimes it's like best versus best, if that makes sense. And who's going to win? Um, so I think that for me, it was the decision making initially to say, okay, um, you know, sometimes I have to back down and, really just listen and hear to see, okay, maybe you're right, because sometimes as a mom, I may see an angle one way. But as a father, he may see an angle another way. And what we had to learn was our viewpoints are not wrong. Um, and that we both have good points, but then we have to either merge them or go with one or the other according to what's best for her. So in the beginning, I think for us sometimes was a little bit of that decision making, mixed
hmm.
with a little power struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which do you find more? Are you able to make those decisions amicably, or do you find you have to pick and choose your battles more often?
Pick
For
and ch-
oh, he's picking choose better. We do better than. I feel
pick
like
it.
sometimes when he's little.
I,
No, he's picking
I'm gonna
choose.
say pick and choose your battles. Cause some things you're just like, you know what, I'm not even gonna entertain it. I'm not gonna go back and forth with you about it.
He's a
That's
little stubborn too, though.
but like I said, you just gotta choose your battles wisely.
Yeah, you're a little stubborn though. But I think for us, you know, we both. I may be a little bit more outgoing, but as far as like drama and confrontation, we both really don't like it.
Mm,
So we pretty much make decisions pretty well. Actually, for some people, we have heard that we are weird, and it's unheard of. So we actually do pretty good with the decisions. It's just that if we both really have a strong, we can bump heads. But I think that recently we have learned to not be threatened by each other's opinion of what should happen with.
mm. That's
Um,
good, not to be
yeah,
threatened by each other's
yeah,
opinion.
because we're entitled to it. So you're not wrong for how you feel as a father. I'm not wrong for how I feel as a mother. But now what we do? What do we
Yeah,
do? And you got to be willing to like hear it out and hear both sides. And I see
mm,
a lot of times where parents are not willing to hear the other person once they separate from that relationship.
right,
Yeah.
right. Well, it sounds like the two of you have grown and are taking the more emotionally healthy route. Have
Yeah.
you experienced, or do you have anyone that you know in, within your family or friends that are not as healthy? You don't have to name people, but
Yeah. No, so I'm gonna start with no. I'm playing. No. I honestly, I have to be honest, and I feel like growing up, I don't really recall seeing co-parenting relationships. If I'm correct, I really only either saw like single mom,
Mm,
um, raising the kids, and either dad is in and out or not around, or things like that. And I, in my family, if I could recall, really, that's mostly of what I saw. Or it wasn't a actual situation where the child stayed in both places.
Mm-hmm.
So for
mm,
me, doing this was pretty much creating our own blueprint, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense, because I never
yeah.
done. So we had to now. What I can say is just because I saw those situations didn't mean I didn't learn anything from them. Um,
Hmm.
so, but for myself, I've never seen it done, and I did mostly just see where either the other parent wasn't involved at all, so they never even had to deal with co-parenting like that. You just had the step parent or bonus parent situation. Or you would just see, where it was a lot of issues and drama in courts and all that stuff. Mom's getting child support, because the fathers don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
Um, just really all I've seen personally.
Yeah.
I think I'm the same boat. That's what I saw. Cause like it changes. Like you said, sometimes you go through generational curses, but at the same time, I think we all came up with our own blueprint of how things are going and are going to go. And I think, like you said, as you get older and you mature, certain things I would have did when my son was younger, I don't do now. So I think we have like I have a better co-parenting situation now. I think.
Yeah, so we had to
Hmm.
be really intentional about getting advice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that, if someone finds themselves in a co-parenting situation, be careful where your advice come from.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
That's
think
good.
every situation is different. Every person's situation is unique, and you gotta figure out what works
For you.
for you and your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And because a lot of people would say, um, well, you're the mom anyway. You can make all the decisions. You don't got to go through that, or um, certain sometimes advice that you get is not the best advice. So I would say if you don't see somebody successfully, healthily doing this,
Mm-hmm.
seek a professional with anything you can do to help. But yeah, I know that we had to be very careful with the advice we received because sometimes it just wasn't helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Put in those plugs for seeking help, Tylisha. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Very, very important. There's a question in the feed. It says, "Has co-parenting negatively impacted your relationship as you learned how to navigate the blending?"
Our relationship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Closer to the camera. Yes.
Closer to the
It's
camera.
got. It's good. It's.
It no, seriously, it has because what begins to happen, right?
Oh shit! Here we
Is no, seriously. So what
go.
begins to happen is we love each other, and in our own relationship, we love each other, we defend each other, we cover each other, right? So when you see, so he has to have conversations with his son's mother, and
Hmm.
I have to have conversations with my daughter's father. And
Hmm.
that's kind of where the boundaries question came in. So you have to create boundaries of, what time people are allowed to call. Um,
Yeah.
oh, you can't just drop past my house unexpectedly. Things like that because what happens is, these people and we had to, respect their boundaries. You used to your old relationship when you were in a relationship, right? So now when you co-parent, you have to set those boundaries with each other as
Mm-hmm.
co-parents. And then we have our relationship. So sometimes if maybe I may hear when they having a disagreement, you know. And to be quite honest, I may not like the tone that they're going off
Mm.
of. He may hear our conversation and don't like the tone it's going off of. Um, or, whatever, or they could be just having a disagreement. And it doesn't necessarily have to be all bad, but then guess what? When we get off those phone calls, or when we leave that situation, now it becomes our conversation. So we had to learn to create boundaries with us. So
Yeah.
the external factors didn't affect our relationship. If that makes sense. So
Hmm.
to answer that question, we had to learn that we come first, and what we're doing come first because we get together, right? We're dating,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get engaged, and then you get married, and you have all of these different life things happening. But co-parenting doesn't stop.
Nah, it doesn't. And you still,
Right.
and then you're trying to navigate
Yeah.
your new relationship, your
Yeah.
new marriage, and
Yeah.
all that. You're navigating those things on top of still trying to
Get better with
get better with
co-parenting.
co-parenting, and it comes like I said, a lot of it comes with growth. So growth and learning, because you're still at the same time you're learning your significant other, you're also still learning the co-parent and
Yeah.
how
Right.
they, because
Right.
you got to realize that that person can also grow and things can change also. So you still have to kind of navigate that and find that balance, because sometimes it's one of those things where if you're still stuck in your head like, oh, this person is this or this person is that, not, and you won't see their growth because it's stuck in your head, or you'll always be like,
Mm.
oh, you know, ain't gonna change, it's gonna be the same old same old.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
a lot of growth.
Yeah, it definitely does. So I know one of the things that we put into place um, was we kept those conversations small.
Mm-hmm.
We kept our conversations big, if that makes sense.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so we didn't allow what was going on to then affect us, because it could take up a whole day conversation.
Mm.
You know, so we had to start minimizing it, and we actually put that in practice with a lot of other things too. So we basically, anything between us or what we're doing or the moves we're making, or our goals, our dreams, aspirations, whatever the case may be, we've learned to have more of a conversation about that
Right.
than allowing those other things to happen. So I hope that
Yeah.
answers
Yeah.
that.
For those of you who are listening, the examples that Tylisha are the examples that she's sharing, you need to just go ahead and continue to like and share, because they this is really good discussion. And co-parenting, blended families are on the rise, and so we need this information, and people need to know how to do it well. And when you talked about boundaries, Talisha, people get the concept of boundaries confused. They think that they're supposed to put boundaries on other people rather than creating the boundaries for yourself. So when you said that, oh, we had to decide, like what time can they call? So the boundary is, I'm not going to answer the phone. Not you can't call me, because you can say you can't call me after 10. And if they call after 10, if you answer the phone, you're going to say, oh, you're crossing my boundaries. No, the boundary is I'm not going to answer after 10. And so I think people get very confused as to boundaries is your fence around your house, not
Yeah.
trying to put a fence around somebody else's house. And so that was really good and very very key for you to highlight, Talisha. And so thank you for that, and thank you for being transparent and for sharing. So when we think about the step parenting part, um, there's a question that we posted on social media, and the question was in reference to discipline, because we know that is huge when it
Oh,
comes to step
yes.
parenting. That's
Well,
huge. And so, what is that like for you when it comes to discipline, or the first time that you had to discipline your I know you don't call your children your stepchildren, but you had to discipline each other's child.
yet again, it comes with boundaries. I think even with that, like, I would, when you look at discipline, I guess it's one of those things where you try to, it's levels and kind of,
Mm,
all right, how far will I take it? Okay, I can sit here. I think,
We can have a conversation. Yeah.
yeah, you got to have that conversation with your significant other to find out, all right, what do you think your your co-parent will feel if I, yelled at their child or something along those lines? Because I've never put my hands on
Take
Peyton.
an
And yeah,
iPad
yeah,
or.
yeah, I would like even Peyton's a little girl, but I would never put my hands on Peyton. So far as even with JJT has never put her hands on JJ. She might yell at him, get in his face, but it's never crossed the line of all right, where it's a beating, so it's gonna cause a red flag for that other parent. So I think we navigated that well, and for the most part, discipline. Like if it's something that my son or our son did, I more so take the heat of disciplining him,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not an issue. And if it's something that Peyton did or something like that,
Absolutely.
she'll take care of it. So it's like you kind of you know which way to go with it than just taking it by yourself
To
to
do whatever.
to do whatever, because
Yeah.
then now that can cause conflict with the other parent, and
Correct.
then that's a whole nother that's more drama, more issues. Oh, they put their hands on my kid,
Yeah.
and it's like, who needs that?
Yeah, I think, one of the things we find, you have to have that we had to have that conversation, of what it would be like. You head up, you know, any issues that we have to do with our son, and I'll head up anything that we have to handle with our daughter. Now, you do have it where maybe he's not around, or maybe I'm not around. So basically, what we've had to do as regards to discipline is, kids are glued to their iPads and things like that. So it may be where he's gone, and maybe I had to repeat, I don't know, cleaning your room or something. And okay, if you don't do it next time, I'm gonna have to take the iPad. So somewhere between the warning and the actual consequence, I have to give him a call, to say, hey, this is what's going on. You can talk to him, but if not, this is the consequence I'm thinking of. You okay with that? Yes, I am. Okay, cool. But as far as and same thing with him. So when it comes to discipline, I think you have to have the conversation with your husband or your partner that you're with. And then, depending on your situation, you may be able to contact the other co-parent. you
Right.
know Sometimes that's the conversation. So maybe he would have a conversation with her dad, and he'll say, listen, I understand how she can be sometimes. So if you have to talk to her. Don't put your hands on her, but you can talk to her. Sometimes those are the conversations that kind of must be had, because what I can say is that in co-parenting situations, your kids, your children, they are going to try. Okay. So you have parents who are split up, and they are going to try to play sides sometimes, naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they're trying to get what they can get, because they're kids. So sometimes they would kind of, play on each other. So I think it's huge to, try your best to be still on the same page, and try your best to kind of be, what we call it, like a solid, what do we call it? Not the same page, solid front. Yeah, solid front. Um,
Mm.
you still have to be a solid front, even if I live here and you live there, because the kids go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they'll say what daddy said, and then I'll call up and say, did you say? And he's like, absolutely not. So sometimes your kids try to play on that. So I think with anything, especially with the discipline factor, it's huge. And you really have to have that conversation of what it's going to be and what's the boundaries around it.
Yeah, yeah. There's another question. Do you guys monitor what you share with your spouse about the co-parent to avoid animosity between the spouse and the co-parent?
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so
Break
basically,
that down for me, because I'm trying
break
to
it down,
break
break it
that
down, break it
break
down,
that
break
question
it
down for me real quick.
down. So to answer it, basically what they're saying is, do I ever have to shield maybe what I say to you, so that you don't look at her father some type of way? And do you have to share some of the things you may share with me, so I don't look at her?
Nope, I'm telling it all. I'm telling it all.
He really is a tell-all. I mean, he likes to talk.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell it all. Like, it's like, I feel like it's out there.
Do
That's your
you
spouse.
feel do you feel comfortable enough to do that because of how I am in my response? You don't think I would take it?
No, I'm just gonna tell you. You gonna take it how you gonna take it. Like, it's no point. I feel like it's no point of shielding certain things. You just gotta put it out there, and understand that you're gonna get a certain type of reaction when it comes to your spouse. Like, it's
Is it to keep honesty between us?
keep honesty, and it's one of those things. So, everything's out in the open.
Okay.
Because you never wanted to come back. Well, this person said this, and so
Yeah.
it's just like, it's out there. Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I think for myself, I'm gonna say the same thing. I really don't shield it. But again, you have to know who you're with. And I think we have the opportunity of not shielding it, because we both know that we will talk to each other and get out what we feel.
Mm.
Then you got to be like, all right, now we got to be adults. Let's handle it responsibly, you know, and we go back into that mode, you know, what we got to do for the kids, or, okay, we call it sometimes go back to truths. So, um, okay, something happened, you didn't like it, but what's truth? Let's just, you know, think clearly with it. So I think that you kind of have to know who you're with to know if shielding potentially is best. Um, but I have seen and I have given advice where there have been some people who are now in new relationships and they're trying to
Mm-hmm.
navigate. And what I would say is, even if you have a situation with the father or the mother, gets on your nerves, y'all go at it, you can't stand them, you hate them in some situations. When somebody's coming into your life and all you do is talk negatively in that way,
Right.
it can really start to affect the relationship, and it can kind of
Mm-hmm.
affect how they see you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It would make them say, do I really want to get involved in this? You know, so yeah, it's like,
I want to sign up for this.
do I
Like, I don't
want
want to
to
be in this
really
situation.
really sign up for this?
Right.
No, you cute and all, but do I really really want to do this? You know, so I think that you have to, it's a difference between just, you know, sharing what someone said and trying to come to a resolution about that, rather than just airing it and they get on my nerves. I can't stand them. I hate them. Let me tell you what they did and blah blah blah. You know, and all of that. So yeah, I would say we don't shield, because what we don't want to happen is something to come out and we find out we didn't share it with each other.
Right.
So we share it with each other, and it's up to us to help each other deal with those emotions.
Yeah.
Um, so we have to hold each other accountable with that. But for us, it works for us not to withhold it.
Yeah. I mean, that's all part of the marriage vow. You know, you're
Yeah.
not going to withhold things from your spouse, and the two of you are the epitome of maturity. And it's just exciting. I just saw a post from Gianna, and she said the maturity. It's just really, really a good model for people who are trying to navigate this. And of course, everybody doesn't get the opportunity to necessarily have cooperative co-parents,
No.
and you know, it's that's just not everybody's story. But the one thing that you said, Tylisha, was that you know, for you to go into this constant negative talk, everybody has to be responsible for how they handle themselves, even
Yeah.
if the other co-parent is, you know, off the chain and you know, and just not emotionally mature, or you know, really not in a position. Sometimes it's capacity. Sometimes people just don't have the capacity to
No.
be good co-parents. They
Yeah.
haven't gone to get the necessary help for themselves, just for life, period. And so navigating yet another stressful transition in life when they haven't dealt with their own stuff, it can create, you know, a really, really toxic kind of situation for the relationship between the two. But like you said, everybody has to be responsible for their own behavior. And so even if the other parent is less than desirable with their behaviors, that parent that is healthy needs to remain healthy, period, and not stoop to the behaviors of the one who is not healthy. So let's just take a shift. What about, because we talked earlier about the community, about the about the grandparents and the aunties and the uncles, they're still part of your children's life, even though you're not in the family anymore, so to speak. So how did you navigate that? How did you navigate the rest of the village once you were no longer directly connected with the village?
Well, for us, I think our parents
No,
just
for you and Gigi's mom, their village.
I think well, they're not. I don't think our relationships changed when it came to the families. I think everybody kind of we're all cordial. We all will be see each other at like sport events. We still talk. If they call me for questions or anything like that, I don't think our dynamic didn't change, and that was a plus. I think that's because I've always had a healthy relationship with them. So I think for that's why that didn't change, regardless of what happened with me and her. It's basically that had nothing to do with the the distant family.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think similar for mine a little bit. Um, I think that sometimes when a split happens, family takes sides.
Mhm.
Naturally.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that I think it's always just focuses it back to the kids, and wanting the village to still stay in their lives.
Right.
So for us, I know for me, it was kind of having a conversation sometimes with maybe not all. I didn't have it with every family member, but some members to say, um, you know, we're not together, but at the end of the day, you are her grandma or you are her grandfather. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Mhm.
and we still want you around. We still want you involved. You're gonna get my invites to birthday party or So I still have communication with the other side where maybe grandma will call and say, hey, Peyton's been wanting to come see me. I was thinking about coming to see her. Wish you guys arrangement. Do you mind if I do it on your week? Do you mind if I do it on his week? You know what I'm saying? Or
Right. Right.
him if he minds if I do it on his week. Um, so we've I think that for me it's still you still have to navigate and keep that relationship open because those people do not stop being important to your child just because
Right.
you decided to leave the relationship. So not only do you have to figure out everything with mom and dad, you now have to say, okay, I have to, like he said, make sure when we're at events, still have
There's no
conversations.
animosity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you don't want that. Your kids see everything, even if they don't talk.
yep.
They see everything, and they pick
Everything. Mhm.
every single thing you don't see. I have my facial expressions are pretty good, intense there. And I may think that my face is straight and my daughter's just like, why are you looking at people like that? So they pick up every single thing. Um so for us, we may not talk every single day, but they're still invited to birthday parties, major
Mm-hmm.
events, visiting,
Yeah.
so things like that. Yeah, and we both have big families, so and in our families, there's so many different blended everything going
Situation.
in.
So
So I know for me that wasn't a big issue to continue. Now I know for some people that can be a factor, and sometimes when the split happens, maybe people don't really like
the person you're with.
the
Mhm.
other the other parent anymore. But sometimes that's hard to navigate because you may have, for instance, you may have one set of grandparents, the grandparents, which will be your mother or father, right? They may say, I don't even want to see him, or I don't even want to see her, because I don't like what they
Mhm.
do. So it's really
I
hard
get that.
sometimes navigating that, and I think that not only do the parents have to learn how to put their emotions aside and be adults sometimes, but the extended family do too.
Yes.
It's especially when it's at those events for the kids, whether it's sporting events, birthday parties, or
Mm-hmm.
what have you.
Holiday.
Any of holidays, yeah, any of that stuff, it still goes on.
Yeah, life doesn't stop
It does not stop.
because you're a co-parent. Like you
Yeah,
Right.
still and
yeah,
you still got to figure things out. So you don't want that animosity at an event. Like it's odd. And like she said, she has facial expressions. So it's like, well, why are you looking at them like that? Like
yeah.
so it's
And it's not always easy. And I know it may sound like we got it together. No, it is not always easy.
it
And
took a
it
long
wasn't.
time.
It
It took
wasn't
a
always
long,
easy.
long, long,
It
long,
it
long,
it
exhausting time.
yeah.
And that's why we started out with saying that this co-parenting is not for the faint at heart.
No.
And hearing all that you have navigated and your experiences and processing through and all the conversations that you have had to have with each other and with the other parents. It's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot. And I applaud both of you for how you have been able to navigate, and just what you have shared, the tips that you have shared, I know are going to be helpful for those who are, experiencing or just starting the journey. I keep saying a journey because this is not for the sprinter. This is not for the one who does not know how to endure the marathon. You have lots of years left to
Yeah.
be, and even after children are adults, then you start sharing grandchildren together. So it really never ends. And
Hmm.
so being able to get to that place, and I encourage those who, are listening to you and they're like, wow, that is awesome. I wish that I had that for my children. I just encourage you to, keep the faith, do your part. I think that's the most important thing. Do your part and stay focused with what you know to be right. And that's, I mean, at least 50% of the battle won, right? If you think about it.
Hmm.
What tips could you offer, Talisha and Jeremy? What tips can you offer parents that, may not necessarily have it as healthy as you do? You've already offered a lot of tips, but anything else that
I,
uh,
anything else that you can think of?
I would say the biggest thing is you're going to agree to disagree. But if as long as you
you
keep
have to,
the
yeah, you
best interest
have
of
to.
the child, you'll be able to maneuver through it. And you have to put your feelings aside. Make
Yeah,
sure the
that's
child is
good.
one of the most, as long as they're good,
The center.
yeah, as long as they're good, regardless of how you feel about it, let it go. Like there's no point of dwelling on it. There's no point of being angry about it because you guys are never going to be on the exact same page for every topic,
Everything.
every
Yeah.
situation, every
Mm-hmm.
this. So you just got to learn to agree to disagree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I would say my biggest advice is that you have to separate the you have to separate from how you saw them in the relationship in the split and how you see them as a father or mother, right?
Mm,
They're two different things. They may
right,
have been a horrible boyfriend, a horrible girlfriend, a horrible husband, and a horrible wife. Or you didn't like what happened in the relationship, but that doesn't dictate a lot of times who they are as a father and a mother.
right.
They're almost two separate people in a sense, right? So a lot of times I feel like in co-parenting situations, you know, people, I hear a lot of women say, you did me wrong, you weren't this, you weren't that, and you're a horrible father. But they're always there and they're always active and so they may not do everything you would like and you would want, but they are now you have to see them as father and fatherhood, not your ex, not your ex-husband, not your ex-boyfriend, not your ex-wife, etc. But you have to separate them, um, and say, and learn them as who they are simply as the father and mother. And I would say that you also have to give each other the grace to grow. You mentioned maturity. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes depending on how old you were when you had kids,
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes as women, the biggest mistake we make sometimes, especially when you have kids earlier, I know a lot of times women we like to say that we're a little
Sure.
mature than men in age, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
takes 4 years to kind of catch up a little bit. But you have to give the grace to grow, and you have to separate who you saw them as in the relationship versus who they are right now as a co-parent. Um, because a lot of times you don't, once you split from that relationship, you no longer learn them intimately like that on a day-to-day basis. um,
Mm-hmm.
so you may look at that person of who they were 5 years ago and they are totally different now. So the biggest thing I will also say is that you have to, even though you are no longer learning each other in a romantic intimate way, you are now learning, you still have to continue to learn each other and respect each other, if that makes sense.
Right.
um, So the biggest thing that I know we've had to learn was that, um, you know, my tone or the way I deliver is not always really received,
Mm,
and I have to listen to that
right.
and hear and work on that so our co-parenting situation can be better. Or I may say, hey, anytime I present something to you, you may seem very closed off, or whatever case may be. You have to learn those things with each other so that that relationship can continue to be better, not for each other, but for your kids.
Right.
And
Right.
so you can have less stress. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
probably for each other. Um, so yeah, I would just say, you really have to, especially when you first starting off, and you are no longer together, or maybe you never were together. Some things happen. So, you really have to see that person for who they are as a father and a mother,
Yeah.
um, and also give grace for you guys to grow and learn, because you're not going to get everything right. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much. That I think the tips, the whole conversation, and all that you had to share, I know is going to be helpful for many as they view. And I'm going to end with this. I remember a couple of years ago, there was a daddy daughter dance, and I was watching the pictures. I was watching a video, and I saw Jeremy and Peyton's dad at the daddy daughter dance, and they were taking turns dancing with Peyton. That was the absolute most heartwarming experience to see, and I know that Peyton will absolutely never forget that. She'll just never forget it. She'll be an adult, and she's gonna look back on that day and see how her two dads waltzed her and were,
yeah.
getting along and being there for her. And it was all about her that day. And
It
I
was all.
thought that it was all about her.
Yeah, she actually
It was
has
just
that.
amazing.
Yeah, she has that picture in her room of
Yeah.
dude taking a picture. Yeah, and I think it really attests to them. And I'm going to say this: two men and two black men doing it.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That
Doing
is
it.
doing it, and been doing it from the start as well. And she was able to have that day because of them, and
Yeah.
because of their willingness to just pay attention and focus on her.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, that was huge for her, and it was because of them that she was able to have that.
That's awesome. And
Yeah,
Tylisha, your friend Sherelle, she
yeah,
said that another thing that you shared with her, and I'm going to end with this, is that it's never too late to improve your situation. It will always improve your child's life, even if they are adults. And so I just want to encourage anyone who is still in a place of struggling to get to that place of having some sort of amicable relationship with the co-parent. It's never too late, and you may not see it now, but it does not necessarily mean that this is your life story, that you won't ever get to the place. Just do your part. That's the thing that I want to encourage. And get counseling, even if the other
yes.
parents will not go to counseling. You get counseling, and that will help you to continue to do your part. Thank you so much,
Thank
Jeremy and
you.
Tylisha. Yes, you have been an absolute amazing couple on tonight, sharing your lived experience, and I absolutely know that it has benefited those who are watching and those who will view in the future. If you have any friends that are not on Facebook, you can definitely catch this on IGTV. It will be uploaded and you'll be able to send your friends there. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Dr. Danita Thompson so that you can view the videos as they come out. And we've added a new segment this season called Monday's Mental Moment. And so on Monday, I am going to give mental and emotional health tips related to this topic. And so don't forget to tune in on Monday. It's only going to be about 5 minutes. I'm just going to give a few tips as it relates to managing your emotions and making sure that your mental health is intact when you are going through co parenting and step parenting and trying to raise a blended family. Thank you again, and thank you everybody who tunes in. Make sure that you catch me on Monday, and then also on next Thursday. My family, my sons, and my husband are going to be on that episode, Parenting on the Other Side of 18. Thanks
Ooh.
again. We'll see you next week.